Today I've got a comparison between the Spyderco Paramilitary 2 and the Spyderco Southard Flipper. I'm going to do my best to not interchange the names of these during this video, but forgive me if I do. Sometimes it's hard doing these comparison videos. I ended up getting these knives because for a while I've had a brown Paramilitary 2, which I love, and I kind of decided I wanted a black knife. So I ordered the black Paramilitary 2, and while it was in the mail, I saw the Southard. I had always seen the Southard, it's been out for years, and I always thought it was a much bigger knife, so I was never really interested in it. And after I got looking at it a little bit closer, I realized it actually is a kind of compact knife, and I love the flipper, so I decided to pick one up. One of these is going to go back. I don't need both of these, but while I had them, I thought I'd do a little comparison video of them for you, because they're both kind of similar in a lot of ways, mostly the size, I guess, and they're different in quite a few ways. One of the biggest ways that they're different is the price. The Paramilitary 2, I paid $127 for this. The Southard, I paid about $230 for it. So there's a huge difference in the price. The Paramilitary 2 is made in Golden, Colorado. You can see right there. And the Southard is made in Taichung, Taiwan. I would think that for the Southard price, you would get a US-made knife, but sadly not. It's still a great quality knife. You would just think it would be a US-made knife, but it's a huge difference in price. It may be that you're partially paying for the Southard name, along with a little bit of increase in quality in this one, I think, but I'm not sure how much Brad's name adds to the price of it. The size of them you can see is actually fairly similar, at least as far as length goes. The Paramilitary 2 is just a little bit longer. Handle length 4.81 inches versus 4.5 inches. But one of the big advantages you're getting with size with the Southard is the width. You can see that putting it over the Paramilitary 2 here, the Southard is really just about the size of the Paramilitary's handle, because this has got the big bulbous part sticking out here for the thumb hole to get in there. Whereas the Southard has the hole, but it's really in there, and it's really, I almost can't use it on this because it's so far down in there. It's almost just in there as a, hey, this is a Spyderco, so we have to have the hole. But really, you're going to use the flipper to open this up. But it's nice and small in the pocket, and I really like that. The weight on them, the Paramilitary 2, a little bit lighter, 3.75 ounces, whereas the Southard is 4.1 ounces. Because it's a little bit more of a compact knife, you can feel that it feels just a little bit more chunky in the hand, but it's, again, not a huge difference. The width of them, the Paramilitary 2 is a little bit thinner because it's just 2 layers of G10 with the nestled liners, whereas the Southard is G10 over titanium liners and then a titanium frame lock side. So you can see here the Southard is just a little bit thicker. Is it enough that you'll feel it in your pocket? Probably not a whole lot. One of the advantages of the size of the Southard is that you get more blade. The blade to handle ratio is better. On the Paramilitary 2, you can see that there's a bunch of extra space here at the end of the blade, whereas on the Southard, the blade goes pretty much all the way to the end of the handle, so you're not getting any wasted space. When the blade is open, the blade length on the Paramilitary 2 is, the lengths are pretty much negligible, 3.44 inches versus 3.46 inches. However, on the Southard, you get a longer cutting length because on the Paramilitary 2, there's a big choil here. On the Southard, there is really not. So you're getting more cutting distance, but if I line the tips up, you can see the difference there. But I never really cut anything this far back on the knife, so for me, it's not really an issue. If I line up the pivots, they're pretty close, but again, you can see you're getting a lot more cutting distance on the Southard. Well, I've got the blades out. The blade on the Paramilitary 2 is S30V. There are some that are S35VN, I believe. The steel on the Southard is CTS 204P. They're both good steels, and I'm not by any means a steel guru, but I think the CTS 204P is a better quality steel. My Spydercos always come razor sharp compared to all my other knives, and both of these are no exception with both of those. The blade profile on both of these, full flat grind on the Paramilitary 2 and a hollow grind that you can feel on the Southard. On the back, the Southard looks just a little bit thicker. It's 4 millimeters. 4 millimeters versus about 3 millimeters. And the Southard blade feels kind of like a more stout, more sturdy, more manly blade. Not that I think I'm going to put the Paramilitary 2 past its limits, but the Southard feels like it's a little bit more of a hard use knife. The way they're constructed, they are both G10 on one side. The Paramilitary 2 has G10 on the other side with nestled liners. And then the Southard has a titanium frame lock. And as long as we're speaking about the locks, let's talk about that and the opening mechanism. The Paramilitary 2 has the spider hole here that you can just flip open nice and easy, especially after it's broken in. The thing just flips open easy, closes nice and easy. The Southard, of course, the spider hole that you really can kind of use, but not really. But you can flip it open either with the push button or the light switch method. Opens nice and easy. Once it's open, the Paramilitary 2 has got the back lock, which you can then just use to close. The Southard has a nice beefy frame lock with a really far lockup, probably 80% or so. It does tend to stick on some knives like this one. Some other ones it doesn't stick. There's an over travel protection right here, so that when you're closing it and you're pushing that lock bar out, it won't go past that if you're apparently in that big of a situation where you're just manhandling that thing over. Out of the two of them, I prefer the flipper, and I prefer what seems to be the stronger mechanism with the frame lock. I like that better. Let's talk about carrying and pocket clips. The pocket clip on the Paramilitary 2 is much better. You can see here there's lots of space under the tip. It's close to 4 millimeters on this, only about 2.5 millimeters on the Southard. So getting this into pants is much easier. Under here there's a nice rounded surface, so it just slides into clothing a lot easier as compared to the Southard, which is only, again, about 2.5 millimeters. And it comes to a point right here, so it's kind of a focal area of force as you're putting it into a pocket. You could say that it's going to be more secure in the pocket. It probably is, but it's harder to get into the pocket. Over time, the Paramilitary 2 clip will apparently bend out. I guess you could bend that back. It is pretty loose in my pocket now because you can see there's a whole bunch of space there. I imagine you can get a new one or just try and bend this one back down. Will the Southard bend out over time? I don't know. Maybe it'll be a little bit tougher as far as that goes because of the way it's designed. Carry direction, the Paramilitary 2 is tapped for all four ways, right-handed, left-handed, tip up, tip down, holes are pre-drilled everywhere. The Southard is only right-handed tip up. Now when you're carrying it, there's some advantages and disadvantages to certain ways. The Paramilitary 2, the way I've been carrying it is like this. Here's my brown one that I've had for a while. I've been carrying it this way. And so this goes down along the side of your pocket, and if you're going to have a pen or something in your pocket, it's going to ride along this smooth surface here and not scrape up the pen. If you want to carry it tip down, you have the big bulbous part sticking out here. Things are going to stick out further with it. It's going to be a little bit harder, and even just a little bit harder getting your hand to the pocket just because it's so much wider there. Whereas the Southard in your pocket, it is nice and smooth and thin, and things are going to ride along the side of it, not going to get scratched up as much because it's nice and smooth there. So the Southard is definitely going to be a little bit smaller and easier in your pocket. It's a little bit shorter and much narrower, so definitely a win there for the Southard. In the end, which knife is better? Is the Southard worth an extra $100 or more? That's a tough one because the Paramilitary 2 is a great knife. And it's a great knife for the price, and I've really enjoyed it. It's super sharp. I love carrying it. It's nice and thin and easy to carry. It carries really well. But I really like the flipper on the Southard. It feels like it's a better quality knife. It ought to for $100 more. But it does feel a little bit more sort of hard use EDC kind of knife for what that's worth. It just has a little bit better quality feel to it as compared to the Paramilitary 2. Still a great knife in its own right, but there you go. I'm not going to make an official decision on which is better. It really kind of depends on how much disposable income you have and how much you want to spend on the knife. I think in the end, I'm going to keep the Southard because I've already got the other Paramilitary 2, and I like a little variety, and I like the flipper, but that's about it. Spyderco Paramilitary 2, Spyderco Southard Flipper.